Let us begin this evening's program with a bit of chanting. Just the beginning, brief portion of the evening chanting, which we do every time. I'm going to put it on the screen so that you can chant along with us and see the meaning in English. My computer is very slow today. Please put your hands together in Anjali and bow to the image of the Buddha that you can see in your room, or the little Buddha that you can see on the screen about 3 times. Yo so Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho, to the Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment. Svakato yena Bhagavata Dhammo, to the teaching which he expounded so well. Supartipanno yassa bhagavato savaka sangho, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Dhammayang bhagavantam sadhammang sasangham, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Imehi sakkhavehi yattarahan aropitehi abhipugayama. We render with offerings our rightful homage. Sadhu no bhante bhagava sukhira parinimbutopi. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, Panchima Janata Nukampamanasa, still had compassion for later generations. Ime Sakkare Gatapanna Karabhute Partinganhatu. May these simple offerings be accepted. Amhakam yikaratam hitaya sukhaya, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. Subhakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Suparipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sanghang namami, I bow to the Sangha. Handamayang Buddha Sabhagavato Bhumbhabaga Namakaran Karomase.
Namo tassa
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Dear friends, we're going to be sitting for a meditation for a while. This morning, I invited those who came to the morning meditation to use the contemplation of sensations in the body in order to block off the incessant story-making activity of the discursive thinking, in order to let the mind be quiet, to have a rest, to come to stillness. And then with the breath meditation, to let the mind just attend to a simple object, to continue enjoying that stillness and the pleasant experience of full awareness, where the mind is very steady not being pulled and pushed around by restlessness or by discursive thoughts. I think I want for this evening's meditation to invite us to recall the pleasant, very pleasant, joyful, wonderful quality when we have gotten away from any negative tendencies, giving ourselves seclusion from the hindrances, seclusion from unwholesome states of mind. And then joy arises. We can gladden the mind. And with that, happy mind is supportive of even greater levels of bright, calm awareness. So if that seems like a good kind of meditation, please bring yourself to an upright and balanced meditation posture. If there's any agitation at all about what happened before or what might happen in the future, let's decide to leave those alone, to simply focus on the here and now, on the present moment, and what is arising in our own awareness right now, right here. And having a few minutes of open awareness, just seeing what arises, whether it's the body sensation, the feeling tone, the state of mind, or even awareness about Dhamma. Just be still and take the measure of what's happening now. What's it like to be you right now? With this open awareness, the mind is in the middle, seeing whatever arises. And within that space of mindfulness, bringing the thought of kindness, of metta, beginning with your own dear self. Wishing for your own best welfare and happiness. Aware of the meaning, the significance of caring for your own happiness. And taking a simple phrase of metta. Doesn't need to be a long sentence. Just a few words to remember that this is metta. Like, may I be happy, are the phrase you usually use. And pronouncing the phrase of metta for yourself silently, clearly pronouncing the word of kindness. Like, may I be well, or may I be happy. Whatever word represents your own true happiness. Repeating the phrase of kindness, sincerely wishing for your own best happiness, your own welfare. At the beginning of this meditation, you had full awareness of the state of the body, the feeling, the mind. And now bringing up the thought of kindness. See if anything changes. What's it like dwelling in kindness? And if there's a feeling connected with metta, one can give some attention to that feeling, continuing to repeat that phrase of metta, aware of the feeling of metta. Aware of the feeling of metta. Let that feeling be clear and stable. Think of that feeling as happening in the body somewhere where it's clear. And making the feeling of metta to expand and grow and gently pervade the entire body. And if you lose the meditation or lose the feeling of kindness, go back to the beginning of this method and just notice what it's like with open awareness, aware of the body, the feeling, the mind, what it's like. And then bring up the phrase of metta with a sincere wish for your own true happiness. Keep repeating that phrase. And if the feeling connected to kindness is there for you, then letting the whole body be pervaded by the feeling of kindness. And when the meditation is stable, just keep on pervading with full awareness of the thought of metta and the feeling of metta, using the words to just keep gently feeding the intention like an IV drip, bringing a little nutriment in. The phrase is so soft and gentle, nourishing this metta meditation. and bringing to mind some teacher or mentor, someone who inspired us, who helped us. Thinking of a real person and addressing them by name, wishing their true happiness. Keeping that person in mind, repeating the phrase of kindness, aware of how it is, the feeling of kindness for that inspiring mentor. Bringing to mind one of your parents, whoever comes to mind first. Speaking to them by name, wishing for their happiness. Pervading your mother or father, filling them completely with happiness, with their true welfare, the highest good. and bringing to mind some lovable friend who makes you smile. And speaking to them by name. Dear friend, may you be happy. May you be well. Give them the wish for their happiness, the thought of metta. Bringing to mind the neutral person. And wishing for them also their true welfare, true happiness, the highest blessing. Speaking to them by name with words of kindness, with the thought of metta for them. and bringing to mind some difficult person. If there's anybody that's difficult for you to like, or if there's anybody who's in a very bad place with bad habits, a bad mind, doing bad things, bring that person to mind and call them by name and wish for their true happiness, their highest welfare. Then just letting this kindness go in all directions. Inside and outside, everywhere, without a limit, pervading all the spaces. The thought of metta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Dear friends, this is the last of the series of Uposatha talks that we're giving during this 3 month of the Rains retreat, the Vassa retreat. Throughout this retreat, we have been considering the theme of stopping the war. Practicing for peace, learning how to eliminate conflict internally within one's own self, interpersonally, within community, and even thinking how to skillfully be able to be a presence in the world which can help the world to let go of hostility, anger, and mutual recriminations, mutual harm, and help be a presence in the world which is a force for peace. Even though we Buddhists are very small in number compared with the number of people in the whole world, nevertheless, if we can find within ourselves this practice, which is balanced, harmonious, and gentle, and which is creating the safe opportunity for deeper meditation and the opportunity to, with courage, to stay present and to look and see how things really are, to see the nature of reality, to look with great courage at dukkha and the arising of dukkha, the cause of dukkha, even having the courage to let go of that clinging, whether it's clinging to our pleasures, to our beliefs and ideas, clinging to our identity, being able to let go of those things. The possibility of doing these deep and profound practices given to us by the Blessed One depends on groundwork of non-harming. At the very beginning, from the first baby steps of practice all the way to the end, there is this idea of not harming, not keeping anything which is poisonous, whether it be internal to one's own mind or directed outwardly. This practice of loving kindness is just one of the ways, one of many different ways that we've looked at throughout this Vassa, as a way to condition the mind internally towards raising up that aspiration for the true good, for the final accomplishment that we're aiming for. This whole gradual training that we undertake has got the qualities of happiness, joy, and tranquility. Even though dukkha or suffering, unease, disappointment with samsara, disappointment with the world, even though that is an aspect of what the Buddha taught and what we are practicing with, that aspect is balanced out by having the ways to gladden the mind, having the ways to discover and really experience the tremendous relief. You could say that an uninformed, uneducated person who doesn't know how to practice, who might have got some destructive habits of the mind, whether it's just part of being a human being, or whether it's something specific in their childhood or their upbringing or their culture, or what they've been exposed to, the situation that they're in. These unskillful reactions are part of our experience. They're part of our background. If you remember how it used to be for us before, or if we had the first knowledge, the divine eye, which was able to look back and see previous lifetimes and see our own past and different states of existence, we would see so many instances of us, what is stressful and what is unskillful, the patterns and the way in which it's all perpetuated. And this includes, among other things, the way in which these wrong ideas, this clinging to a particular identity, or clinging to somebody's status, or what they think is their essential self, can lead to the desire to both protect and aggrandize the self, and that can so easily escalate into interpersonal conflicts, into feeling threatened and challenged by any kind of adverse thing that arises for us. And that then, if we have those delusions, if we're so untrained in being able to hold on to painful or unpleasant things that come along, if we don't see them as being impermanent, as being impersonal, not self, as being nothing to be disturbed about, then disturbances do arise, and then that internal proliferation of thinking and defensiveness can arise, and it can accelerate into aggression towards others. It can accelerate into war. This is how wars start. So all of that is true. And in a weird kind of way, a part of the medicine for all of these troubles that a person can experience and the troubles in the world, part of the medicine for that is the most simplest, humblest kind of happiness of a person who is contented with reality as it is, who has few desires, who has learned how to let go of the bad habits of the mind, learned how to see things in a way that leads to calmness and detachment instead of seeing things in a way that leads to reactivity and upset. A person like that is just happy. We have a happy life. It's not the happiness that comes from things, that comes from being loved by others, not the happiness of being admired and appreciated by others. It's just the happiness that we always had. It was always there within us, waiting to be discovered when we found out how to create space within ourselves, the space of freedom, the space of emptiness, being empty of those defilements, empty of those delusions, empty of those toxic habits. And so, in a strange kind of way, the person who's got that joy, who is able to gladden the mind, able to discover that blissful spot within, when we're doing that, we're not really doing anything. It's like being nobody, going nowhere, doing nothing, just existing, just being without any expectations. And it's a kind of a powerful medicine. You could say it's like homeopathic medicine, I think, and I don't understand homeopathy, but I understand that their medicine comes in very teeny tiny, itsy bitsy little pills that are really small. And you just take one or several of these itsy bitsy tiny little pills and put them under your tongue and let them dissolve in. And there's a very tiny quantity of medicine is able to bring about a transformation and a rebalancing and a change in the whole body. And so just in that same way, we're kind of thinking, wouldn't it be great if everybody here or everybody who hears this talk would be able to find within themselves the happiness that they always had, just by letting go of the defilements. Find that happiness and just be with that in the most simplest kind of way. And they will be like a medicine for all the others in this world that they may come in contact with. It sounds kind of idealistic, but it also can be a challenge and take a lot of determination, practice, and perhaps some trial and error to be able to practice that. Even within our community of practice here at Dhammadharini, we have been trying and aiming to be even more intentional about the cultivation of peace, being even more careful and considerate in how we will treat our colleagues or anybody that we meet along the way, being more intentional in doing that practice of loving kindness, where we are looking not just in the universal way of loving kindness towards all beings everywhere. But bringing that thought of kindness, that intention of kindness, compassion, and so forth, to each person in each situation that we encounter all through the day. And because of developing that intention of kindness, then we might be able to intuitively find the right words or the right actions, the right gesture that would be the skillful thing in that particular moment that's the most beneficial for that situation. It's sometimes not at all clear what the skillful thing to do is. Is it more skillful to speak or more skillful to be quiet? Is it more skillful to be concerned about upholding the purity of morality, of upholding the precepts in a very pure way? Or is it more skillful in a particular moment to be giving a lot of attention to feelings, how we feel inside or how the other person is feeling? What to emphasize or what to choose, what aspect of the circumstance to focus on, and how to approach it at any given time. There are a lot of different solutions in life that are peaceful, that are harmonious, and that are skillful. And it may be different at different times. How do we make the right skillful choices to be an agent of peace? Well, in part, it's by this cultivation that we intentionally are reflecting on this awareness, on this desire for peace, on this sense that by becoming more peaceful, we're actually creating an internal environment for ourselves, which is supportive for the growth of wisdom, for the growth of our practice. And then externally, we also are creating the safe space for others, for those who we encounter, to find they don't need to be defensive or reactive towards us, because they're with somebody who's calm, with somebody who's peaceful. In doing this study throughout this Vassa, we spent a fair bit of time looking at how aversion and anger arises, and seeing how many different ways the Buddha offered us in the various suttas for how to become free and to be able to completely avoid the arising of anger. Even the Blessed One advised that we should cultivate in such a way that if we were seized by a group of bandits or criminals who were sawing our limbs off with a saw, bringing about our upcoming bodily pain and suffering to be followed by our painful death, that even at that moment, we would not allow anger to arise towards them. This is the ideal, to have such a well-established internal stability that there is not any provocation that can cause us to become unbalanced and to become carried away with a resentment, a grudge, anger, or some other kind of toxic reactivity. We looked at, for example, looking at the person who's potentially a disturbance to us and seeing if they are a mixture of good qualities and bad qualities. Say their speech is good, but their actions are bad, or their actions are good, but their speech is bad. And then considering that it's possible to look very closely and find what is good and what is useful in them, like picking up a rag by the side of the road, which may be dirty and smeared with dirt and perhaps rotten and not usable. But looking at it very closely, you could see, well, part of this rag that I found is useful and could be made into something good. So let me cut away the bad parts and discard the bad parts and keep the good part. Or like finding being thirsty and in need of water and finding a pond of cool water, but the pond is full of weeds and algae. How it's possible to push aside the weeds, push aside the algae, and find there the cool, refreshing water, which is just what we need to heal the discomfort of the body. Or even if you found some unfortunate being who was so thoroughly unskillful, someone who was really lost, whose speeches were bad, their thoughts are bad, their actions are bad, everything about them is horrible. It's almost impossible to like them because one feels so much disgust and like that. But then even that person should be considered like as if you're walking along the road in a deserted place and you see somebody who's very ill, someone who's dying, someone who desperately needs help, but they don't have any friends to help them, and they don't have anybody to help them get to the hospital. They're going to die right there and come to a terrible end because of having no resources, having no strength inside to care for themselves, and having nobody else to care for them. So if you saw somebody like that, you wouldn't be adding hatred to their misery. Instead, what would come up would be compassion. And you would immediately wish to help them if you can to get out of their terrible circumstance. And so in that way, by doing these kinds of reflections and many other beautiful reflections and similes that the Buddha gave us, a person can learn to have the understanding that dislike, hatred, and any kind of grudge is absolutely toxic, both for us and for the other. A severe danger to us, a danger to the other, and something that we should not tolerate, not welcome, not think that it's okay to have this as part of our psychology, and then to undertake with practice, gradually, little by little, to find a way to eliminate grudges, to eliminate hatreds. We looked at the ways that internally within the monastic community, there's a number of formal procedures given for settling disputes and disagreements that could arise within a community. And we looked at those as things that don't only apply to monastics, but things that may be useful to anybody in any walk of life, if they could learn about these ways of speaking with one another and caring for the difficulties that can arise when, from time to time, members of our family group, our club, our school, or the local government, members of our workplace, any kind of a communal situation, members of the family, problems can arise. Mistakes happen. Unskillful things can happen. Feelings can happen. Even if somebody is let's say internally disapproving or dissatisfied with another person, with their companion in community life, and they think that they're being very controlled and very moderate and very restrained and not displaying their dislike, and yet through some kind of subtle way they could say one word or two words, and the other person can immediately see through and see that you're carrying around within this attitude of disliking, of disparagement, and it can cut them like a knife. It can cut into their heart and cause them to have distress. So these things, they do happen when you have humans together in groups. Whether you're in a group that is blatantly engaging in disputes and arguments and quarrels and yelling and shouting and political strategies and trying to harm one another, or whether you're in a community that's striving very sincerely to be harmonious and gentle. Nevertheless, things happen, mistakes happen, and there are techniques, there are ways to resolve these things, to bring up a concern and to do that kind of heartfelt listening, that if there's a fault, there's a way to acknowledge a fault and to make the determination not to repeat that fault. And these things are so helpful. When I was a kid, my parents were very gentle. My grandparents were on both sides of the family. My grandparents were quarrelsome, and both of my parents had been the peacemakers within their families. And then when they got married and created their own family, they had this very clear decision that they made to be gentle in their parenting style. And yet, nevertheless, when we were little, we could see that, especially with my mother, when my mother was unhappy with us, she would become very quiet. And so when mother became very quiet, the children would be terrified. And so the thing that would have made it better if they had known about Buddhism and about the forms of monastic life, if they had known that it's good to be able to acknowledge one's own mistakes without being afraid of punishment or being afraid of harm. That if there's a way to make it safe, that if I did something unskillful, or if I got temperamental, or if I was irritated, or if I did anything that was not what it ought to be, that I can go, I must, in monastic life, I must go to my trusted colleague and put my hands in Anjali and say, oh, I have this fault, I acknowledge it. And then the punishment is, usually the colleague says, well, do you see? And you say, oh, yes, Venerable, I see. And my colleague will say to me, in the future, you should not do that anymore. And I would say 3 times, I will restrain in the future, I will restrain in the future, I will restrain in the future. That's the entire punishment. You see how gentle it is. And could you see how beautiful it would be if the little children would feel that if they made a mistake, if they did something bad, that they could go to mom or dad and they could say, oh, I did this. And they wouldn't expect a blow. They wouldn't expect sarcasm. They wouldn't expect any kind of harshness from the parent, but they would expect the most gentle kind of talking to, say, well, you shouldn't do that in the future. Can you see how to not do that anymore? And then throughout the life of the family, if everyone in the family could know how to take care and acknowledge the little things that come along, and then it could happen that one day some big problem comes along facing the family, some big conflict or something really terrible comes along, or there's a major disagreement, they join different parties or something like that, or they, but at the time of this major disagreement, because they have been dealing with each other harmoniously over the small things for so many years, then the pattern is set in place to take care of differences and disputes, to take care of whatever happened that was unskillful. And they've got the pattern is very well in place. And then they've got all the skills to be able to, in a calm way, to sit together and to speak about how each person feels and what they think is what really happened, and to then come to a good resolution. So these kinds of things is also part of what we have been studying and cultivating and developing throughout this Vassa retreat as we learn about how to stop the war. And perhaps even at a more profound level, circling back to the first noble truth of dukkha, and especially the first 3 noble truths: dukkha, the arising of dukkha, and the cessation of dukkha. If we could come to this life where it's clear that joyful peace and harmony is the natural existence for a human being, and then have a kind of sensitivity to see any variation of that. When an upset arises, when pain arises, when depression arises, when anxiety or grief arises, all of the different aspects of dukkha, when they arise, if that could be seen as it's like I called it an anomaly. Our normal state is happiness. Suffering is an abnormal state. And we've learned from the Buddha that that abnormal state came about because of craving and clinging. So anytime that the shadow of dukkha comes across our mind, we can see this is the great opportunity. This is the most significant time for practice. This is the time that we have a chance to look within and see, what am I holding on to? What am I clinging to? What am I craving after that's caused this disturbance to arise? And then if we can see that we're clinging to something, can we find out how to let that go? That's the second noble truth. Letting go of that craving, letting go of that clinging. And then can we experience the return to normalcy, which is the mind, which is peaceful, calm, joyful, the mind which is free. It has the happiness of being free from affliction. So this can become very, very subtle. Even a person who's made a lot of progress in the Dhamma can find, even after years of practicing meditation, of keeping good sila, good morality, listening to Dhamma talks, nevertheless, it can still happen that something crosses the radar and it causes that trigger, it causes that, frowny face. It causes that, I don't like this. It's like, oh, this is not all right. Something like that arises. And then, so these moments become more and more subtle. And so the sensitivity to when dukkha arises and how to take care of it, this is what can lead us to go further and further onto this path of purification, to go to the very core, to the deepest pattern that we have within ourselves, whatever we're clinging to, that is keeping us tied to some samsara, and which is blocking us from the breakthrough to liberation, which is blocking us from gaining the path and fruit. And so just this way, being intentional about this path of peace and really setting the bar, setting the standard as high as we can to whatever extent we're able to understand. This is peaceful. This is calm. The freedom from craving, the freedom from delusion, not clinging to anything at all. Then this effort to stop the war is also leading us towards the end of going around and around with this cycle of samsara. The greatest teacher, well, even the Buddha, many times spoke about his right view being a view, a way of understanding, such that he's not quarreling with anybody at all in the world. One of the contemporary teachers who we looked at this Vassa was Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a great, famous, well-known master of the Dhamma who went through hell early in life with the suffering of the War of Vietnam and all of the trauma that happened to the monastic Sangha during those years, and the traumatic experience of so many of the Vietnamese people with everything they were subjected to. And in all of his work to heal that trauma and to be a maker of peace, in his principles of action, he so much emphasized not being dogmatic, not being punitive, not using any kind of force to try to make people agree with your own opinions. Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized we're always growing, we're always evolving in our level of understanding. And so in whatever way we understand things right now, we should know that if we're continuing to grow and to evolve, that our understanding that we hold now is just a provisional thing, which is still going to be changing and developing. And so there's no need, and it's not the least bit skillful to be getting into any kind of a pressure situation or a conflict situation to try to get other people who have a different idea to agree with our idea. All of these things are just dangers, such as significant dangers to our spiritual success, that Thich Nhat Hanh included them in the fundamental principles of his organization. He's got a 14-point summary. It's like a little Vinaya, a little code of conduct for the members of his community. He reduced it from 200 rules, 275 rules to 14 rules. And out of the 14, I think 3 of them were dedicated to not being dogmatic. And so this can be the last danger, even when we stop fighting about money, we stop fighting about property, we stop fighting about being superior or inferior or those kind of things, then those who are either inclined to philosophy or inclined to religion sometimes can fall into the danger of fighting about views, fighting about the words we use to describe these subtle truths that we sometimes can understand. And so we let go of all those things in order to become peaceful, in order to make that space, and in order to have a path of practice that's onward leading, that is going to take us to freedom from affliction, freedom from suffering, freedom from the taints, to our final liberation. This is my reflection for tonight.
Dhamayam Dhamo Vadakataya Sadhu Dhamase
Sadhu, 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 anumodami. If you don't mind, I'd like to welcome your questions and comments, but I'd like to give the monastics in the room with us time to make their own comment to this, if they're willing to do so. Now, Ayya Brahmavara is going to come.
Well, thank you so much, Aya, Sobhanā, for a remarkable talk, which there's nothing I can add, nothing. But what I really appreciate actually is for those who've been following the Vassa Uposatha talks, and especially for us, like the summary of the entire Vassa of study, consideration, contemplation, that was just so fantastic to hear again, the things that we've been considering week by week, and just to have it all summarized in that way. It was so helpful. Thank you so much, Sobhanā.
We should wish Aya Brahmavara safe and successful travel. She's going to be undertaking a tudong in Italy together with 3 other monastics. And she will be away from us for a little while, and planning to return in January to again be part of this community. So you may have a chance to hear from her during the winter retreat period from January to March.
I look forward to coming back soon.
And by the way, these Uposatha programs on the full moon day and the new moon day are going to be also paused for a while. And then during the winter retreat, they will be starting up again. During the winter retreat from January to March of 2023, Ayatata Loka is going to be leading these talks on the full moon and new moon days. So this is something to look forward to. It's not 100% of a sure thing, but probably the regular weekly programs that are done by Dhammadharini may be led by Aya Brahmavara, as well as Aya Suvijana and Aya Kachayana. So, those 3 monastics are going to be around and maybe leading some of the weekly programs. So you'll have a chance to get a lot of nutriment of Dhamma talks, even during the time that we are spending most of the time just practicing. I myself, you won't see me during the winter retreat because the community has given me the chance to have an extended, secluded personal retreat. So I will be sitting in a little cabin at the Aranyabodhi Hermitage in Jenner, practicing my own meditation. The only way you'll get to see me is if you bring lunch, which you're welcome to do. If you feel glad, I feel glad and happy that Dhammadharini is such a great community that we're able to support one another to have these longer retreat times, and that the other monastic members of our community also have this opportunity to have longer retreat times supported by us. So I've made that announcement, and now I'll see if Venerable Seminary Satyama would have any comment to add.
Just a big gratitude to you, Aya Sobhanā, for such a wonderful talk, and I echo Aya Brahmavara's review about how the summary of everything we've been studying and cultivating over the Vassa, it was so fresh to hear it again. And I'm just reminded of why the Buddha enjoined us to reflect on these teachings again and again and again, because every time we hear the Dhamma in this way throughout the Vassa, it's like the teaching, the understanding goes deeper and deeper. So I'm just really appreciating how magnificent, how generous, how clear you have made the Dhamma over the Vassa, and how the teachings have been so fruitful in so many ways. So thank you, Aya.
Well, others may be watching on the YouTube, but who we have here in this space is Barbara, Erica, Maitri, and Rwanthi. If any of you would have any questions or comments or your personal testimony about how this practice of peace has enriched your own life, I would be pleased to hear from you. If you want to speak, put your hands up in Anjali and unmute yourself. Okay, Erica.
In the meditation practice today, what I noticed in myself was the feeling of loving kindness. And so I'm grateful for the remembering and also just the instruction in this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What I give is a version of the method of loving kindness, which is taught by a Thai bhikkhu called Chai. And his teaching has been popularized in English by Bhante Sujato. The Venerable Ajahn Mahachat Chai did not have so much of an international following. He was more local in the Thai community. And Bhante Sujato discovered him and has got several different teachings on the practice of metta meditation. So if you want more, you can Google that and learn more about this particular style of metta meditation that's focused on using the feeling of metta as the learning sign to help to clarify and stabilize the practice, and also using real people to bring up the thought of metta in a way which is like kind of authentic, and then having developed and stabilized that thought of metta, then being able to go to the pervading the whole world without any limit. So yeah, thank you for reminding us about that. Barbara, I think you had we're going to put your hand up.
I'm kind of dealing with my own confusion around practice that you actively all do as a monastic community. And it seems kind of elevated from my often primitive responses, even if I mask them, but the feelings internally that I may choose to, how do I handle this, quote, appropriately and gently and all of that.
Yeah.
But what about the inner stuff that really isn't a little bit of faking it, you know? And I don't say that disparagingly to myself,
Right.
but that sometimes it's something I aspire to, and I might even, quote, practice it, but it's not necessarily authentic.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's a wonderful question. It is certainly true that it's good to fake it till you make it. If the mind is such a complicated thing, there's many different things happening at the same time within the human mind and heart.
Yeah.
So just the same way, you could look at another person as a mixture of good and bad qualities, that within yourself, you have the distress and the upset and whatever that's in turmoil. But then you also have within yourself good morality, good values, good,
Yeah.
good intentions. And those things are like coexisting in the same stew. So by paying attention to those qualities that are more uplifting or more wholesome, more calming, more beneficial, that helps those qualities to grow and stabilize. And then little by little, if you are the qualities that are, let's say, toxic, okay?
Yeah.
The toxic qualities that we have within, let them go if you can. And if you can't let them go, just be mindful.
Okay.
Let them go if you can. But if you don't yet know how to let them go, be mindful.
Okay.
And by mindfulness, I mean a very compassionate mindfulness. Thank you. Sorry. I forgot to turn the camera on me. Doing this gentle compassion, forgiving. It says, oh, it's just because of causes and conditions. I still have got this poison within me.
Yes. Yeah.
And said, I'm a human being.
Right.
These things exist within me. And then by relaxing around it, then at a minimum, because of impermanence, that affliction doesn't last forever at the peak intensity.
Right.
Sometimes you forget to be miserable.
Right.
And then you could say, oh, here's a moment of calm. And just notice and appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then do as much as you can to cultivate and arouse those wholesome things, even if it might seem a little bit phony at the time. It does create a possibility. Yeah,
I like that. It creates a possibility.
yeah,
I can hold that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Aruwanti.
She's.
Can you hear me?
Yes, if you speak up, you're a little soft.
So first of all, I like to express my gratitude to Ayya Sobhanā, Ayya Brahmavara, and all the Venerables for the wonderful teaching throughout this Vassa period. It has been very enriching for our lives. And I also value the opportunity to be able to undertake big precepts on the Uposatha days. As for this evening meditation period, one of the things I experienced while I was thinking about expressing loving kindness towards each category, I was experiencing intense pain in one of my legs. So I was coming back and spreading metta to myself and from time to time. And I was also remembering this morning you were telling, I'm not sure whether this morning or evening, you were telling like if you could sit through 20 minutes of it, you should be able to get through it. So I was remembering that as well. So all that helped me to sit through the meditation period this evening. So thank you for all the guidance and teachings that was brought to us. I just want to express my gratitude to all the members. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, and it's really wonderful to see you in this space. I know that you have been a friend of Dhammadharini for many years, and we are always happy that now, because of the miracle of the internet, that we're able to see face to face.
Yes, yes, we have joined the program all the way from Florida, but yeah, it's like in the same space.
Right.
Thank you.
Maitre, you might as well take us out and tell us how it is for you.
Thank you, Aya. I wanted to say that there's a lot to practice and a lot to contemplate, and really wanted to say thank you for your tireless effort to throughout the day to explain the teachings and throughout the Vassa.
Okay.
Sadhu, sadhu.
And thank you, everybody, for your good practice, for your excellent efforts, for your sincerity, and for your patient listening to the Dhamma. By the power of all these meritorious deeds, may we be happy, and may this happiness extend to all those who we care about, all those who we love. May all of our relatives be safe, happy, and well. And now we say good night.